Yeah, so I wanted to talk about a mantra.
A mantra.
Yes, the mantra. There's too many humans on this planet. Repeat.
Whose mantra is that?
Well, it's everyone who is involved in, it seems, in global politics. And it is a prevalent idea that is so often repeated that we just simply believe it.
Why? Why? First of all, who's behind it and why are they all behind it?
Well, it is an idea that started with Malthus. Malthus is a philosopher, economist, the 18th century in England.
Yeah.
Who is the first to have, devised this idea that the population growth is exponential, but the ability that we have to use the resources of the planet, energy, food, etc., it's not exponential. It's linear.
Okay.
So at one point, the resources will be unavailable to a large population. And
boy, talk about a fear tactic. So that's enough to scare people.
Well, it's just very interesting because it's a divisive way to look at things. Humanity has going through an evolution on this planet, and each phase of the evolution have been defined by a certain access to a certain level of resources. So you had our ancestors, not even Homo, or just the beginning of Homo erectus, for example, they would just have some stones,
right,
to be able to extract some food and to defend themselves.
So it was their only tool, was stones and rocks.
Stocks and rocks. Then you had several hundreds and thousands of years, millions of years, or you had access to a spear. Then you had the first metallurgy, extracting first copper. This copper is not very strong. So you have the iron.
Right.
So at each of these phases, some people could have said the planet cannot support more than so many people because
we only have so much metals and so much in rocks.
And, yes.
Okay.
And so this is the funny thing is that at one point in human history, in England, 18th century, people suddenly started to think of themselves as so much on the top of the food chain that everything they knew was the truth.
Right.
Right? And we have a very good example with one of the scientists of Napoleon, the Emperor of France, Laplace. He lamented actually to Napoleon. He said, I regret so much that I'm living in the wrong period of time. So Napoleon said, why do you say so?
Yeah.
He said, because everything has been discovered already. There's nothing more to discover. This is the arrogance.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That what you know is all that exists. There could be nothing more possible beyond what you know.
Yeah, and
you're right.
I feel that in the past, humans remain humans. They learn, and we all learn things thanks to what ancestors have learned.
Right.
There's an expression I like that we are all dwarf standing on the shoulders of giants.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if we can contribute a little bit to this orchestra, to this symphony of humanity, it's just a contribution. It's not a whole definition. So this mantra of there's too many humans on the planet has been, in my opinion, defining the last 100 years of our history. And it was revived very solidly in the beginning of the 20th century by the Rockefeller Foundation. The Rockefeller Foundation has been very instrumental in redefining medicine in a way that could be questioned because it is really a medicine that is geared towards chemicals. Okay, and not only they develop medication and imposing medication, synthesized, but they also had a huge role in downplaying and even eliminating natural schools of medicine, or your old grandma medicine.
Right, right.
The family doctor who had so many tricks.
What was it driven by? By the need to control people, that they needed them to be dependent on the chemical-based medicines rather than grandma's remedies?
So it could be simply hubris, that now the modern way is the best way and the only way. And so you kill everything else because you believe that it is, we can see now, a huge mistake. But what was driving this effort, so you have several schools of thought on this. It was a devilish plan to take control of the health of people knowingly, or it is simply humans being stupid because not being able to see and to balance things. Yes, for example, antibiotics have saved countless of lives, and this is not a myth.
Sure,
but it is appropriate to certain conditions. But if you generalize and every disease is treated through antibiotic, you create a lot of problems too.
Right.
So the good approach would have been to identify within the known medicine what was working, trying to be a little bit patient and not eliminate systematically and forcefully anything that was not entering a certain framework that is today what is taught in schools of medicine. Basically, that you have symptoms and these symptoms have to be disappearing through drugs.
Right.
And as long as there's no symptoms, the person is fine.
Right. So there was no looking into the actual underlying problem that caused the symptoms.
No, it's terrible because the symptom is just a signal. It's just the body. If you have pimples on your skin, if you have fever, of course
there's a reason for all that.
Yeah, it's not the disease.
Right.
Something is causing this.
Yeah.
Meaning the body is reacting to something.
Right.
So you kill the reaction, and sometimes the reaction can be dangerous. So you need to control the fever, for example, for sure. But to say that each time I have a little bit of fever, I kill the fever, and now I'm good. No. What is causing the fever in the first place? It is the reaction. It's your body trying to fight something.
But I guess it's you going to buy something to kill the fever rather than looking at it any deeper is what the plan was, because it sells their chemicals. They're pharmaceuticals.
Well, let's say that this way of thinking is very much aligned to the financial bottom line.
Sure.
Okay?
So it's a commerce-based
It could be a coincidence,
model.
but it is very... And there's actually a Boston consulting group who devised a report a few years back saying that curing patients was a very bad business model. in terms of
course, it's bad
disease.
For business because everyone's healthy and happy. Yeah.
Yes. So returning to this mantra, there is too many people on this planet. The Rockefeller Foundation has also devised and let's say spread this model of it's called the demographic transition model. And what happens, since the beginning of the Homo genus on this planet, there has been living, it can be estimated, around 120 billion humans since the beginning of humans.
Right.
So this is what people have in mind when they know this subject, right? And most of these humans have lived in very recently. So you have very, very few humans in terms of population. And then you have an explosion that is very, very striking. At the beginning of maybe in the 1980s, we were maybe 4 billion people.
Right.
Now we are close to 8 billion. So it's a doubling in like 20, 30 years.
Right.
Which is, so the transition model is trying to say that every population will go through certain phases. So for a population to be maintained, you need the number of births to be matching the number of deaths.
Sure.
And if you do,
then it's a balance.
Then it's a balance.
Right.
Let's forget the consideration about male, female, right? Okay. But so basically, there's a number that is magic, is 2.1. So if women have 2.1 child, then you replace the generations.
Right.
Okay, so then you have a stable population. Now, what's happening is that from a legacy perspective, you had a lot more births. Like in Africa, maybe in some countries of West Africa, and you had an average of 8 children per woman until very recently, right?
Right.
And the idea was that the transition model is that there would be an explosion of population, not only because women were continuing to make a lot of babies, because it was seen that as you develop, and especially when women go to school and when women go to work, they tend to have less babies. Okay? And now the increase of the population is driven by the fact that since you have medicine now that prolong life, and it's not really medicine, it's really better conditions of life, better sanitation, access to clean water, which is a real killer. Water, when it's not clean, is a real killer.
Yeah.
So all these diseases dealt with, so people live longer. So you have the births, people don't die.
Right.
As
because people are living longer and healthier.
Well, healthier.
Under better conditions, should they?
Yeah.
Right.
Life expectancy, like in many countries in the beginning of, in the 19th century was like 40 years old.
Ah, sure. So now we're living twice as long at least.
Exactly. And there is also a lot of less deaths of babies. I don't know, but it's horrendous to think that probably 1 baby out of 3 was dead during delivery.
Okay.
And it's because of sometimes the poor hygienic conditions of the deliveries, especially since the 19th century. In Europe, they started to have maternities and to deliver babies in hospitals. And a huge scandal because there is a man in Vienna who noticed that you had like charity hospitals and you had public hospitals or normal hospitals. And in charity hospitals, the death rates of babies being delivered was like 3 times less. And he wondered why. Why in public hospitals And he pointed the fact that doctors in this hospital who delivered babies, for example, they have to deliver a baby in the afternoon. In the morning, they are working in the morgue, okay? And they don't wash their hands. So he said, well, it's simple. If you want, and he tested this in an hospital, it worked. Just wash your hands, because all the germs that you take from the morgue, you now, give to the mother, because it's also a problem of the mother dying, right?
Yeah. Such a simple thing that we know today, but they had to discover the hard way.
And it took probably 30 years for medicine to adopt this.
Wow.
He was scorned. He was ruined.
Yeah.
He was incarcerated in a mental hospital because the doctor said, how can you say that we are the top food chain of the human intelligence?
Yeah.
How can you believe? How can it be that we transmit something? Because at the time, the germ theory, the bacteria and all these things were not solidified yet.
Yeah.
So you just noticed that something was killed or not transmitted, or something happened if you cleaned your hands. There was no knowledge about microbes.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So this transition model is really making the population increase tremendously.
Okay.
Okay.
So today we're at an alarmingly high population rate?
So this model, people living longer and babies being born much more numerously, then it would lead to an explosion in population. And if you continue these trends, so this is the only model they apply, then you have an explosion. Then you can predict that in 100 years or 80 years, we will be 15 billion on the planet or whatever.
And so this is the kind of stuff that Bill Gates and some people that we've heard screaming that the population is going to be out of control. We need to control the population.
Exactly. Except that in the past 30 years, this model is breaking down in reality.
Why?
It's breaking down because this is not what's happening in reality.
What's happening?
What's happening, for example, we are now the first generations in America that have actually a life expectancy lower than the parents. It is known.
Really? Currently, we have a lower life expectancy than the previous generation. Okay.
Just because of the explosion of chronic diseases and all this stuff. You know? We also have women who absolutely don't maintain above 2.1. You have in the West in general
2.1 what?
Babies. Per fertile woman.
Right.
So the generations are not replaced. Currently in Spain, you have 1.1 baby per woman.
So it's on a decline. The birth rate is in decline, and I definitely see there's a high death rate. These days, everywhere you read headlines, it's always died suddenly. This person died suddenly, suddenly. So many people are dying suddenly.
So this is another factor that I don't want to consider because it's a kind of external factor to the modeling.
Okay.
It's just that the model of demographic transition is broken.
Right.
But governments, NGOs, they are still applying it and counting on it to make their projections. So why?
Right.
Meaning that why is nobody saying that, as Elon Musk said, that the main threat to humanity is not less human.
Not more humans.
It's the fact that there is too less humans on the planet.
Too few.
Too few.
Okay, so Elon Musk is saying there's not enough population, and Bill Gates is saying we're out of control in population, and we need to control it. So Elon Musk is disagreeing with Bill Gates.
Absolutely, and for me, it's a big marker of not only intelligence, of breaking free of the doxa, of the one thought.
Yeah.
Because objectively, if you look into the matter, the worry that you can have is that, the projections 20 years ago was already, if you really look at reality, that we will be in 2100 at something like 7 billion. Okay?
Yeah.
Look, China is going to lose half of its population by then.
Yeah.
And we know it because it's like, demography is not very difficult. You look at the population today and you can easily predict which way
it's going.
Yes.
Yeah. And so how many is it going to be by 2100?
So latest projections is, if you take into considerations, reality.
Yeah.
7 billion.
So pretty much around what we've had in
today.
these
that
times.
We are today. Yeah. Right. But the other models say that and too many humans, you're killing the planet.
Yeah.
The resources are going to miss because we are going to be 15 billion.
Right.
It's
But
half
that fear factor is due to the fact that they want to be able to control us, right? Because there's that scare of the climate's changing, everything so that they can sort of keep tabs on human activity.
So the climate changing fear is
related to this.
If you want to put it on the humans and say the humans are responsible, you need the justification and say, yeah, humans are too numerous and they are going to increase, so we need to do something.
Right.
Except it's not even an action we need to do, because with the current pyramids of age that we have in many countries, and even in Africa, even in Iran, say Muslims do a lot of babies. Not true. The only country out of Western Africa that is making more babies, growing actually, is Israel. And not even the religious Israelis.
Right.
It's Israelis in general.
So they're procreating the most. Probably by design.
Yes.
Obviously.
It's because, when you ask people, why would that be? It's because they still feel they have a project. There's a meaning on having babies. In all other countries, the meaning of having babies is, it's just going to be a burden on me.
Yeah.
And there's no more collective project.
Right.
Okay. So even in North Africa, birth rates are plummeting.
Right.
Plummeting. Russia, until recently, was losing 1 million people every year.
Wow. To natural causes. Just death.
Just because more deaths than births. And whatever you do in trying to insensitize, you say, okay, we are going to give money to women when they have babies, or Sweden tried that.
Right.
Sweden, 15 years ago, they entered a big, very generous program of social aid for people who have babies.
Yeah.
To provide, daycare and tax breaks, etc. And you can move from 1.5 to 1.7 babies per woman when you do that.
Yeah.
And it works like 3 years, and then it goes down even lower than it was in the beginning.
Okay.
It's because people say, okay, I want a child, and why not have it now? So you make the babies sooner, but it's the same babies you would have.
Sure, it's
2
still
or 3 years
accounted
down
for later, right?
And then once you have it, so down the line, there's less babies than should normally without your intervention. So it's a very mysterious thing. So what is driving a society to really kill itself?
Yeah.
Right? And this is where we are now.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And this is if Elon Musk, and I agree, says it's the biggest threat facing humanity today, the lack of population growth, it is for a reason. And nobody is really addressing this issue. On the contrary, governments, NGOs, they are using the opposite, the lie of the transition model that was sold by Rockefeller, that doesn't work, to say that we are exploding in numbers. Why?
Yeah.
It's because everything the governments do, they are based on population growth. For example, if your whole system, for example, of retirement, of tax base, so governments are spending money, and they're spending more and more money. They are collecting money from their population.
Right.
Imagine a government that says the truth and that says, okay, our population is going to decline. People are going to ask, where is your revenue going to be?
Yeah.
And what revenue will you have with maybe 30% less people in 50 years?
Yeah.
And now all confidence in our current model will be gone. So they have to maintain the lie and say, no problem. It's like a Ponzi scheme. Now, I had maybe 20 years ago, I had access to a private conference in a Parisian school. There was a demographic group, and they are very big engineers in Polytechnic school. And the man who was talking about this subject said that if you really want to be serious about demography and projections, you don't go to the governments, you don't to statistic institutes, etc. They're all funded by governments.
Yeah.
They all have vested interest in lying. What you do is to go to private people who do these assessments of what is the population going to be in such and such country. There's not many of them because it's a lot of resources. And to find an institution that does this free of the burden of government control is very rare. But there's one, in general, there are petroleum companies, oil companies. And he said that according to him, so I've not seen these reports, they're internal reports because they're interested in knowing how many people will have cars and use the petrol.
It benefits them to know, the truth.
Yes, and they have internally assessments that go that in 2100, we could be 4 billion people on the planet.
No.
4 billion, yeah.
Is that right?
This is their projections,
But, the sad thing is that we've actually got people are believing the Bill Gates of the world. And I have had, conversations in social settings where I've heard people say, that they're really worried about the overpopulation and there's not enough space for everybody. I mean, they're actually talking like that because they're buying the narrative.
Exactly.
And meanwhile, the truth is that we're probably going to be half of how many we are right now, in 80 years.
Yes, this is the worry. But even if we stay at the level we are, even if we grow at 10 billion, this planet is absolutely empty. We should be careful not polluting, not toxifying our environment. It can recover very fast if we take the right actions.
Yeah.
We have enough agriculture knowledge, in especially regenerative agriculture, with ruminant animals, etc., to nourish everyone largely and without any more, discoveries to be made. Now, even if we were to double the population, the worry that we would be constrained by current technologies has never been the outlook of humans. We should be more optimistic than that.
Sure.
Meaning that we will find a way.
Yeah.
And we know that it has been revealed to us that God is in charge of providing.
Of course.
And we should not worry about that.
And everyone is born with their sustenance.
Exactly.
Allah has awarded their sustenance, and so every soul is spoken for by God.
So there's a fine line there because it is not a license to do whatever.
Sure.
So we should remain
No, but
reasonable.
we still have to live within the principles of the guidelines that we're born with.
Yes. This worry that everything is limited.
Yeah.
That there's no more. It has not been the experience of humans who have always found a way to find new sources of energy, more dense energies. And we are acting like we are at the end of history. Everything, again, we are in Laplace in facing Napoleon saying, everything has been discovered.
Yeah.
And this is like the repetition of the same mistake,
Although today we know better. We know everything has not been discovered because we're living in an age of discoveries. There's just new and new discoveries coming up. I mean, the younger generation must be just riveted that, when something comes up, whether it's a video game or, a new type of car, something even more exciting comes up beyond that, just another few years later. So we're living in a different era. So you're right. People have every reason to believe and have hope that there's always going to be solutions.
Not really. That's something deeply rooted. Because when you say we're in an age of discovery, I may disagree.
Okay.
I think that nothing serious has ever been discovered in the past 100 years.
Okay.
Look, nuclear energy, for example, it's late 19th century.
Yeah.
Okay. Since then, we are making things, engineers have been using the same discoveries. I mean, principles.
Right.
Better, smaller, faster, etc. But there's nothing really new. And this is it's like there was a cascade of tremendous discoveries. Electricity was discovered, the engine, nuclear, the structure of the atom, etc. But for the past 100 years, what really was discovered that was a breakthrough?
Yeah.
New principles, a new outlook on things, etc. There's none. So
that means that we're not really as innovative.
No, we're not.
As our ancestors.
Big innovations are rare.
Yeah.
But they happened. And we should look for it, right? And not be stuck into our current framework of principles. And we are just better technicians of it. We can make, microchips smaller and smaller, faster and faster, use the GPS, etc., etc. But it's not really something new. I define new,
Right.
Even in medicine, really, since the antibiotic,
nothing great has come out of medicine.
For example, cancer that has been plaguing more and more humans since the 50s and the 60s. There's nothing is really bettering the situation.
Yeah.
The death rates is the same. Protocols are being enforced. Many people earn a lot of money, but there's no real breakthrough.
But I wonder if it's because the real thinkers are being suppressed in today's day. They're considered a threat to the big money, whatever it's pharmas or companies or whatever. I remember, and we should talk about this. I remember listening to a really, really incredible scientist, and I have to pull that up so that I can bring it maybe into the next episode, who was saying that, cancer, for example, can be very useful for us. The cancer cells can be useful and they can come and do their job to our bodies and then leave achieve, and there's a way, and chemotherapy is not the way to deal with it. So you're right. I mean, if thinkers like that aren't going to be supported to come forward with their theories and their work, then we're just going to stagnate. We're just going to keep thinking of cancer as the way it is.
Yes.
Whereas this woman is proposing for us to look at it as something completely different.
Yes. Well, the system is all locked and geared towards exploiting the current knowledge. So, for example, if you want to do research today, you need to prove that you are going to do this, and it will lead to this discovery,
Right.
Which is totally crazy, because if you're searching and something new has always been discovered by chance or by someone so original, you would not follow anything. But if you cannot planify a discovery.
Yeah.
This is the president of France, de Gaulle. He said, searchers, we find them. Finders, we search them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in all, I think this question of population control has no merit. And if we try to do it, it is gearing us towards probably the worst human disaster that we ever faced.